we doing this morning? You guys ready for some Super Bowl action today? All right, just kind of a sound of applause. Who here is for the Patriots? All right, and who here is for the Seahawks? Yeah. You see, I can't imagine, and I don't want to diss Patriot fans or Boston in general, but like, how can you cheer for New England? I mean, seriously, it's like the evil empire of like darkness, like Spygate, Deflategate, Bill Belichick press conferences. I mean, there's nothing they're doing to win hearts and minds of the people. So I know all of you will be really cheering for Seattle tonight. So, yeah, that's good. I'm sure I might have some negative emails off that, but that's okay. Hey, do me a favor. Would you guys fill this out? If you have no idea what this is, it's somewhere on your row. And I want you to fill out. It helps us to actually stay in contact with you beyond today and, like, send you things and, fun. We get to know your phone number and stuff and call you and text you and tell you how much we love you. I actually do text you, by the way. How many of you have gotten a text from me? All right, good. That's just about everybody. All right, awesome. And just do that because that helps us stay in contact with you. These are called our connection pads, if you didn't know what those were. A lot of you get here after the announcements when we fill these out, and so we're going to help you out. All right. That's our housekeeping stuff of the day. Hey, you're going to need a Bible this morning. If you don't have one, I want you to throw your hand in the air, wave it like you care, like you are going to be cheering for your favorite football team, and a Bible will come to you. If you don't have a Bible at all, this is our gift to you. And if you forgot yours today, use one of ours because we love people with Bibles. We love you if you don't have a Bible either, but we just want you to have one in your hands for this. All right. Hey, when I graduated from West Point, I started out at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and eventually made my way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Do I have any other military people here that did that thing of just traveling around and serving? Well, I just graduated. I just really dedicated my life to Jesus, and I was kind of the annoying Christian. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say that? Like, I didn't really have any self-awareness of how intense I was. Like, yesterday, reffing the flag football game, I realized I'm a little bit more intense than most people. Like, I get into everything. So it's like, it's just who I am. I wasn't self-aware then, so I didn't know I was intense. And so, like, when people didn't know Jesus, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Let me explain how this works. You are a sinner on your way to hell, and Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose from the dead. And I like a Coke and chicken nuggets. I mean, like, that's kind of how, like, interacting with people was a little intense. All right? I just didn't have, like, it was bad. Anyway, so, and during that time, I had a company commander, a troop commander, because we were in the cavalry, so we were a cavalry troop. And I was a Christian, and all the other lieutenants in our troop were Christians. It was pretty great. But our troop commander, Captain Park, was an atheist, and he was an avid atheist, and he called us the God Squad, and kind of, it's so funny. But the thing that he didn't have going for him was, first of all, his name was Francis. Now, if your name is Francis here today, there's nothing wrong with your name being Francis. I'm glad that you're here. But back in the 80s, there was I think it was Stripes. You guys remember that movie? And Francis. And so, like, every time I would think in my head, Francis, like, anyway. So I had that in my head. And he was one of those kids that in high school probably got made fun of a lot, probably for his name being Francis. Anyway. And so and here's the thing about the military. If you didn't know this, the military is high school on steroids. Do you guys know what I mean by that? So, like, if you are not cool in high school, like, forget it. Like, your life's over. Like, you're going to be in for a lot of misery, and you're going to be made fun of, and it's not going to be good times for you. But if you were cool in high school, you get elevated to an extra level of cool. So that's why the military is high school on steroids, very cliquish. Like, people have the people they talk to and the people they don't talk to. It's a weird world. Anyway, so he was one of those guys that was not cool, but he was a company commander. You had to respect him and, like, salute him and call him sir. But behind his back, we called him Francis. All right. You guys with me? All right, so on one particular day, Francis, we were all going to lunch, and he invited himself to go with the lieutenants, the God Squad, to lunch, to which we all kind of rolled our eyes, but he's the company commander, so you don't tell him no, right? That would be weird. And so we go to my Blazer. I had an awesome Chevy Blazer back then, and, you have the passenger seat and a little bench in the back, and then you had, like, the little trunk area. Well, there was 5 lieutenants and then 1 captain. And so the captain is probably going to ride what? Shotgun, right? Like everyone's thinking that in their heads. And, we're like kind of annoyed by it, but, it would be a good time for him to have some respect his authority and tell one of the twit second lieutenants get in the trunk or the little back area trunk thing, But he doesn't. He comes to the Blazer, and this is when I'm just like, oh, Francis, just act your rank, please. And take shotgun and tell one of our twit lieutenants to get in the back. But he gets opens the bag, he's like, hey, guys, I'll sit back here. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I mean, like, you're already a dork. Why are you doing this? Now you're like the trunk dork. Okay, like, anyway, so he gets in the back, curls up like a little ball, and we shut him in there, and we joked about the whole rest of the day, and then, we're going to put you in the trunk, Francis. I mean, like, again, we wouldn't say it to his face, but we talked about it. It was really mature Christianity back then for me. But that is our culture, right? Our culture is if you have power, you get shotgun, right? No one, if I don't know how you feel politically, but if President Barack Obama came by, you wouldn't put him in the trunk. You'd be like, bro, shotgun for you. All right, you wouldn't have a problem doing it. All right, how about, like if you were me and you love Michael Jordan is probably the most competitive person on the planet. If you saw his Hall of Fame speech, it was just embarrassing. But if he was riding with me somewhere, I wouldn't make his 6'6" frame ball up and put him in the trunk. I'd be like, yo, Mike, you're riding shotgun. Right? We tend to treat people that we really respect and we give them shotgun. That's just what you do in our culture. And no matter if, especially if they have money, if they have power, if they're politically inclined, if they got influence of some sort, we give them props, we give them respect, and ultimately we give them shotgun. And I wanted to kind of see, and that's just normal, right? We don't expect Michael Jordan to pay for his own shoes. Right? Does anyone here think Michael Jordan should pay for his own shoes? No, nobody thinks that. And the reason why is because he made shoes, right? He's Air Jordan. And so his shoes are worth millions. And so the very person on the planet that could afford his own shoes gets his shoes for free. In fact, the more kind of the way you climb social, economically, you get more perks. Did you guys realize that? You get more people want you to pay for your dinner. People want to give you things. It's kind of great. The more no, even when you're a pastor, you can't pay for that. I'm like, you're right. Yeah. And so we get perks, right? We get military guys. Listen, I got perks all the time. I'd almost feel bad about it. Like someone would be riding, and I'd have my uniform on. You should ride first class. I should. Thank you very much, and I'll take that. And I would have no problem with that because I was a perk. We love perks. We love when people do really nice things for us because we've earned it. You earn shotgun. If you're a captain, you ride shotgun. You don't ride in the trunk. And so I want to kind of take a look at what Jesus has to say about that. Because there's this weird thing that he does that baffles our minds culture. Jesus is the most countercultural guy on the planet. And the very thing with cliques and social order, he destroys that. And I wanted us to kind of take a walk and take a look into, a sneak peek into what Jesus' life looked like as he taught a powerful lesson. And we're going to, I'm going to do spoiler alert here. We're going to talk about Jesus when he washes the disciples' feet. And I've always kind of looked at that story and just kind of, that's weird, but whatever. That just must be what you did back then. But what Jesus is going to teach us with this is how we are to look at other people. It's how we're supposed to treat other people. And this is going to be an example for us to follow. And it's going to really spin me on my head as the example that I sort of mocked in my mind of an atheist commander is the very one we need to be following. All right, let's go. We're going to be in John chapter 13. That's page 900 in the Bible we just passed out. Before we get there, though, I want to kind of remind you on what our thesis statement of this entire book of John is. I might need some help. And that is that these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So here's the reality. Christians are hedonists. Do you guys know what I mean by that? If you're a hedonist, you usually think these guys are into the party and a lot of sin and debauchery. It doesn't necessarily have to be sin and debauchery, but rather we are into the party. We are into having ultimate life. If you're a Christian, you should be experiencing more life than everybody else, and your party should be the best parties. So Keep that in mind for the Super Bowl. Like, you should have the best parties. And the reason you should have the best parties is because you're enjoying life far more because you're following God's plan for your life because he designed you. And if he designed you, he knows how you are best to operate. So we are Christian hedonists here, meaning when we have life, we have it to the full because we believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and we have life in his name. And so we're going to kind of find out what that means here with Jesus in John chapter 13, verse 1. Here we go. Now, before the feast of the Passover, and if you're not familiar with Passover, it's a Jewish holiday, and it's celebrating when God didn't kill all the Israelites. It's kind of weird to celebrate when you didn't get killed, but he did kill off all the firstborn of all the Egyptians who were enslaving the Israelites. It was kind of a bad day for Egypt, great day for Israelites, and so they had like this incredible feast, and hundreds of thousands of people would flock to Jerusalem for like their pilgrimage of sorts, and they would celebrate God's redeeming them, God saving them from slavery. All right, and so there's a little foreshadowing here with Jesus because ultimately he would do the same thing, free us from slavery. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. Okay? So Jesus, this is cool. Jesus is about to have his like deathbed speech, although he's not going to be on a deathbed, so he's going to do it at dinner, right? So this is the last thing that he's going to share with. So this is kind of like the importance factor of this dinner is kind of huge, all right? This is not like a casual conversation on your way to Walmart to pick up some extra groceries and things you forgot for the party tonight, right? This is a kind of a big deal. Sit down. We're having a conversation that's kind of important. This isn't a casual, what do you think kind of a thought. This is a big deal. So during supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand and that he was come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. So they've just had dinner. And he laid aside his outer garments. So, and that's kind of a weird thing. So it's kind of like wearing your t-shirt and we're just going shorts here, all right? So Jesus, he's with men, so it's cool. He takes off his outer garments. He's got t-shirt, shorts, and he puts on a towel so he would look like a slave. And what he's about to do is wash feet. And if you didn't know kind of like the cultural significance of this, I don't think we have a contemporary, something equal to that. I just don't think we do. Maybe like if you invited like the president over your house and said, hey, before we have dinner, would you mind cleaning the toilet? That might, especially at our house, Adrian, it's like, why can't you aim? Anyway. That's another story. All right. Sorry. Back to this scripture. All right, so anyway, it's kind of this big deal, but it has that cultural feel. It's like, that's disgusting. Because if you were to walk along the roads of, Israel during that time, it's not paved. There's no asphalt. You guys know that they're rolling on camels and stuff. And camels have this thing, instead of like carbon monoxide as, fossil fuel burns, they have dung. And you step in it a lot. It's kind of like whenever, you're going out to walk your dog and, you're putting the dog out, you go out to the front yard and, oh, dang it. All right, it's like that feeling, instead of the bottom of your shoe, it's on the bottom of your foot because, sandals were open-toed and gross. All right, so you've got that kind of, and they had slaves that like lived at the house and their sole job was, clean the poop off people's feet. I mean, career counseling day, this is not very many people signed up for this one. All right, you're just like, I don't know. I'll go with anything but poop cleaner. And so here's Jesus taking on the form of a slave, and he's about to wash the disciples' feet, and this weirds people out because Jesus, sometimes he's not culturally relevant with people. He's not doing the thing of like, hey, I want everyone to start washing my feet around here because that's what you would do, and that would be acceptable. I think all the disciples are like, yes, we need to wash your feet because you are God incarnate. But he doesn't do that. Watch what he does. I mean, this when I read it, it just baffles me. So he laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, he tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, do you wash my feet? And that question's a great question. I mean, if think of somebody you really respect politically, socially, whatever, and they come up to you like, I'd love to wash your feet. Not only would that just be weird, but you'd be like, I should be washing your feet. You should be washing mine. That's kind of what Peter's saying here. And Jesus answered him, what I'm doing you don't understand now, but afterward you'll understand. It's kind of like everything that Jesus said. They were clueless in the moment, and then later they got it. But then Peter, and we got to love Peter. Don't you love Peter? I love Peter because Peter reminds me a lot of, me, for example. He goes to Jesus, and he makes this declaration earlier. He's like, Jesus, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus is like, man, that's amazing. God himself revealed that to you. That's unbelievable. Way to go, Peter. And then the next minute, Peter starts telling Jesus what to do. Like, you're not going to die. And you're definitely, watch this, you're not going to wash my feet. I know you're God. I know that you have the whole world in control. You know everything. But on this one, you're crazy. You obviously are not. I know that you might have a different kind of philosophy there in the heavenly realm. But around here, the powerful people they get their feet washed. They don't wash anyone else's feet. That's why I love Peter. He's always telling God what to do. All right. And Jesus answered him, if I do not wash your feet, you will have no share with me. And then Simon Peter, pendulum swings, and that's why we love Peter. He's not very stable, just like us. Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. And then Jesus said to him, all right, slow down, downshift a little bit here. Look, the one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And so what he's referring to here, that's kind of like not common lingo. Like you're like, what? So what Jesus is saying to Peter, you have faith in me. You believe that I'm the Christ, the Son of the living God, and that is what makes you clean. And you symbolize that through your baptism, dunking into the water. And now you only need to have your feet washed. And I'm going to explain a little bit in a sec what that means. So it's not like you need to be saved again, but rather you need to have your fellowship in a sense restored with me. The one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not every one of you. For he knew who was to betray him. Do you notice here that every other sentence, we're putting a reminder on here about Judas, the betrayer? Just put that mental note. Underline, for he knew who was to betray him. That was why I said, not all of you are clean. You see, here's what Peter needed. Peter needed his feet washed. Peter needed his feet washed to prevent the world from sticking to him. What do I mean by that? You see, he was clean. He was saved. He was totally in God's plan. He knew him, but isn't there a tendency in us that even after we know God, we believe that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and he rose from the dead, there's a tendency in us to let the world stick to us. We walk down the street and we start collecting things. Maybe not on our feet, and it might not be camel dung, but wherever you work, you start to talk like the people you work with. At school, you start to act like the other people in your classes. Even in your own family, you start to take on the stuff of the world. And that's why we need to have a sense of fellowship with Jesus that goes deeper than you show up on Sunday, you sit down, shut up, and pay up. Let me try and explain it. So think of it this way. I like to think of it as soaking in the Holy Spirit. And how many of you are great cooks? Okay, I am not. So it's either this. It's like, hey, honey, what are we having for dinner? She's like, I'm exhausted. I'm not cooking. We're going out. Chili's, here we come. But on those rare occasions, when Adrian does cook, I end up usually or sometimes doing the cleaning. And I found it's like baked ziti, all right? You stick baked ziti in a pan, right? Those little, anyway, and the stuff, after you eat it, gets stuck to the bottom of the pan. In fact, it gets baked on there, you might say, because you put it in an oven. And the crud is on there. And so what I try and do is I try and scrape that stuff off. You can get like a drill, the spinny thing. They'll come off eventually. All right, you're like, all right. Or you can use elbow grease and the little squeegee deal, and you're like, and it doesn't come off. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into cleaning this pan, and I don't like doing it, and that's why Chili's gets more attractive over and over. But I learned a new trick. If you take a baked ziti pan that has crud all in the bottom of it, and you put it in soapy water, and you let it sit for a while, like even 30 minutes, then you come back to it and you pull it out of the soapy water, the crud, what happens? Slides right off. And listen to me, that is how you prevent the world from sticking to you. But when you soak in the Holy Spirit, 30 minutes a day, then the crud starts to fall right off. Now, when I talk about that, some of you are looking at me like, I don't even know what does that even mean, soak in the Holy Spirit? Well, I can tell you what I do. And maybe it makes more sense if I go back to when I first started, because it's like, you guys know that you're not allowed to text and drive anymore? Like, you're not even allowed to hold your phone in the car. That's a $500 fine, FYI. Did you guys know that? But do you guys remember the day when it was legal? You could look at your phone, text, and look at the map, and then turn the station on the radio, then turn signal, shift if you had a clutch, and do all that without even thinking about it. And like if someone were to kind of like extrapolate you from the car, it would look like and like things are whizzing by you at like 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and you're just like got things going on. And it's like the most complicated. I mean, that's why you don't want to drive with teenagers. It's hard. That's why, listen, and that's why you can't rent a car until you're 25, right? All right, so, and that's why I learned how to drive on a dollar rental car. Thank you, Dollar, for teaching me the clutch when I was 16. I'm sure we burned out that clutch several times over. But it's hard at first, right? I mean, when someone says, I mean, to learn how to trust in Jesus, it's like, because when you start reading the scripture, you're just like, Durka Durka Muhammad Jihad, lots of words. Okay, I got nothing. But that's our kind of our first read on scripture is like, I got nothing. But listen to me, if I were to teach you and kind of walk you through about pushing the clutch, and then eventually, you know, there's a point at which you kind of shift from the pushing the clutch to giving it gas, you would learn that you start to pick apart the scripture. And it's not easy at first. And you start to find things that are relevant to you, and God starts to speak to you through that. And then it stops becoming like this complicated, discombobulated thing of trying to make a car go, but it's like turning on the vent of the air conditioning, and you just got to receive it. And then, so for me, can I just, you know, I've been walking with God for a while. And I've been able to turn mundane things into worship experiences. And this is what I mean by like kind of receiving from him all the time. Like one of the more challenging things about being a dad is bath time / putting baby to bed time. It's lots of screaming involved, especially when it's not time. When Austin thinks that he's got a better gauge on his bedtime than I do, that's challenging. And especially with the limited vocabulary, lots of frustration turns into lots of screaming. Anyway, so we go into the bath and I wash him. We kind of survive that, and then I get his jammies on and put the bedtime diaper on. That thing can hold a lot of liquid. Anyway, and then you put it on and you put the top on, and then I start to sing to him. And I sing to him Amazing Grace. I sing the same song every night. And I go, Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. And every night I start praying, God, save my son. And we worship. And it takes a mundane moment of putting my boy to bed, and it becomes all out experience. The Holy Spirit soaking him in, and the crud starts to fall off. And the frustration of tears and crying and whining and not eating and wanting to eat chocolate Thin Mints for everything starts to fade. as the crud starts to fall off my heart and my soul, because I love my boy. And I want him to know Jesus very desperately. And that's how you turn the mundane into the sacred, and you soak in the Spirit. And I want everybody to learn how to do that, because that's how your life will be full. And you'll turn average mundanity to extreme party, because you are experiencing the life-changing reality of Jesus Christ. Because Peter is going to have the world stick to him. We're going to even watch it in Peter. I mean, like Peter, like this is like, first Pope Peter, right? I mean, there comes a point at which the world starts sticking to him. He goes back to high school. He starts hanging out with these, he's the one that says, hey guys, doesn't matter if you're Jewish or if you're not Jewish, we all come to Jesus the same way. And then a little bit of time, like he wants to impress the Jewish people, and so he stops hanging out with the non-Jewish people, and he gets called out by Paul. Hey, Peter, the world's sticking to you. Stop acting like you don't know Jesus. You see, that happens. Every one of us needs time with Jesus where the world starts to fall off, because that stuff sticks. All right. Next verse, verse 12. When he had washed their feet, so he's washed every one of these disciples' feet. He put his outer garments, and his outer garments, you lose a little bit. The garments that he wore showed that he was a rabbi, like that he was a teacher. It had like authority. There's like a little mantle thing that he wore. And so he puts all that stuff back on, and then he resumed his place, kind of like the head of the table. And he goes, do you understand what I've done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. This is what Christians do. I don't think you heard me. This is what Christians do. We wash one another's feet. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I've given you an example that you should also do just as I have done to you. So Jesus taught his disciples to wash the feet of followers, friends, and enemies. And when I told Adrian this is what the sermon that we were going through, Jesus washing the disciples' feet, she's like, please don't wash my feet on the stage or anything. It's just so weird. It's feet, and isn't that, it's kind of fun, because that's exactly, if you think it's weird today, it's like 8 million times weirder back then for Jesus to do it. But what the point is, it's not washing feet. The point is serving one another. Okay, so in the military, this is an easy one, because military, I think we get this. Like, if you have people that are following you in the military, you're the last guy to eat. If you're the captain, you eat after all your soldiers. If you're the colonel, you have to eat after all the battalion. And sometimes, as an officer, you go hungry. And so, especially on steak day, when some twit private takes 2 or 3 and kind of puts them in his pocket somewhere, and you come at the very end of the line, and you're stuck with 7 scoops of mashed potatoes and 5 pieces of kernels of corn. That's kind of that's what you're eating. And that's how that goes. We get that. Culturally, that's something that's not too big of a stretch. I mean, we know to take care of those in our family. How about in our community group? If you're a community group shepherd and you're leading your community group, you're there to shepherd and love and care for the people that are in your community group. We get that. We get that. Friends, we're okay with this one. In fact, if you serve in our children's ministry, thank you, by the way. You're serving my son, Austin, who's hanging back out there, probably screaming at one of you, and grateful for that. Or we're setting up the hospitality, or setting up in the parking lot. All that stuff is super important, and it's very needed, but that's serving your friends. We get serving our friends. The weird one, though, is when Jesus pulls, Judas is in the audience. Judas is one of those among the disciples, one of the 12, and he gets his feet washed. Remember, this is Jesus' last kind of little, I don't know if it's a sermon or what it is. It's just his last thing he's sharing. This is very important. This is the last thing he shares before he goes to the cross. And he's like, I want you to see this. I'm going to wash my enemy's feet. And over it through this text, it's saying, and Judas, the one who betrayed him, yeah, he's there. And Judas, the guy who was a dirtbag, he was there. And Judas, the guy who had devil, had him inside of him, he was there. And so that's important because he's an enemy of Jesus. And Jesus goes and he serves his enemy. And we don't really have a category for that in our culture. That's not something we're like, and by the way, make sure your worst enemy, the one that kind of makes your life miserable, make sure you give him a Christmas gift. Make sure he doesn't fall off your Christmas card list. Like, nobody thinks like that. They're like, and you're off. Thank you very much. And then if we want to get kind of personal, some of our enemies are sitting right next to us right here. The ones that we kind of struggle with and battle with, and it's hard because life gets hard. They're sitting right next to you, and you don't want to look at them right now because it's awkward. Eyes straight ahead. And sometimes we do serve, but we have weird motives, don't we? We have weird motives. Like some of us serve people just out of sheer guilt, all right? In fact, we have a lot of people who serve, and they're not in here right now because they feel too guilty to come to church. So they'll serve in the parking lot or they'll serve in children's ministry, but they won't actually come to church because, and they feel like once I get kind of back with my life sort of good, you know, I'll come and I won't be convicted as much whenever Chris preaches. Like that's a real thing. We have people who are serving out of sheer guilt, like they feel like they can kind of earn their way back into God's love and grace. We have people here who serve because it's like this spiritual pride thing. You guys know people like this? It's kind of fun. So I was feeding the homeless this past weekend. Where were you? Oh, with your family? Well, I was with the homeless and serving them, you know, because that's what I do, serve the homeless. And like we have people that want to remind us of how spiritual they are and how they can really get their hands dirty and serve. And I think you need people to serve. It's just when your heart's like that, you got your reward. Congratulations. Or sometimes people are forced to serve. You guys know who are forced to serve you? Call center people. Yeah, when was the last time you called the cable guy and like something went wrong? And you're like, you weren't chipper. Oh yeah? Well, let me tell you. And you let them know how wrong they are and where they can go and how worthless. And you use a lot of language that you wouldn't really use with Jesus. Then those people are going like, oh, I'm so glad you called. You know, your cable went out on the Super Bowl. I'm so sorry. I know that you tried to have a multi-screens and to have to serve the people, and it was really difficult. This is such an annoyance. I don't know how my heart breaks for you right now. Like, that's not them. They're like, I better get a paycheck this weekend because this is a dirt bag. You know, and they're not going to say that to you, but they're being forced to work for you, all right? And then there are just those who just are suck-ups, right? They serve you because they're just hoping you might be their friend. We have a lot of those people. There's just like these negative ways for us to serve because we serve out this compulsion that we might earn something. It's all about earning, and that goes back to you're trying to just somehow white-knuckle life as opposed to receive the amazing grace. And so our heart should be that we serve others out of this example that Jesus modeled for us. And when Jesus serves an enemy, he is demonstrating for us the amazing power of the gospel. God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, while we're still encapsulated in darkness, while we're like, screw you, Jesus, I don't really care what you got for me. Like, he died for us. That's what makes Jesus amazing. That's why it's amazing grace and not like you owe me grace. It's amazing grace because you did not deserve it. He who knew no sin became sin on our behalf so that we might be the righteousness of God. That's why it's amazing. That's why that song is so powerful, because you are a wretched human being and God says, I love you in spite of you. In fact, I love you so much, I will send my son to die on that cross for you. And that's why you just receive it and you're like, wow, I got nothing. And so that's what Jesus is demonstrating here and why he wants us to model this, because that's what Christ is, and so that's what Christians do. We serve like that. And it gets kind of awkward and irritating, especially when your ex-wife or ex-husband kind of gets in the picture, because we don't want to serve those people. Or that boss that treats you super unfairly. Those are the people that were like, no, we don't serve them. We just hope the police pull them over and they get caught speeding every time. And we kind of laugh on the inside when we could drive by. And so that's what Jesus is demonstrating here and why he wants us to model this, because that's what Christians do. We serve like that. And it gets kind of awkward and irritating, especially when your ex-wife or ex-husband kind of gets in the picture, because we don't want to serve those people. Or that boss that treats you super unfairly. We don't serve them. We just hope the police pull them over and they get caught speeding every time. And we kind of laugh on the inside when we Like that's how we handle that. And that's the darkness inside of us. And that's the stuff that's gotten stuck to us. And that's why Jesus is constantly saying, no, you need to be washed by me. Let me wash your feet. Soak in my Holy Spirit. And then when you encounter your friends, followers, and enemies, you start to treat them like I treated you. Verse 16. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. I'm not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but the scripture will be fulfilled. He who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. Now pause real quick. Remember I said that we're Christian hedonists? I'm going to read this again because I think as I was reading, you tuned out. If you know these things, if you know how to serve people, if you know that you're supposed to serve your friends, followers, and enemies, blessed are you. Another translation of blessed is happy. Like the party's starting when you serve your enemies. Your party's starting when you serve your family and friends. You're like, no, it's annoying and it's time intensive. That's because I don't want to say you're doing it wrong. It's like you're putting in the shift, you're putting in the clutch, and you're pulling out on the gas, or pushing the gas too quick, and the car's, that you're driving it wrong. But when you start to know how to release the clutch and push in the gas, and the car takes off and starts, you understand how to love and serve friends, followers, and enemies. And it doesn't become a herky-jerky start, especially when you're going up a hill. Do you see what I'm saying? Blessed are you if you do these. Your life is the party if you do this. And you're like, no, Chris, you don't understand. I've tried that. No, you haven't, because your heart has been guilty, suck-uppy, prideful. I want your heart to be infused with Jesus so he can get that crud off you, and then you start to serve people like that. All right, here we go. And then he says this for a reason. Watch what he says. He who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. I'm telling you this now. This is important. Before it takes place, that when it does take place, you may believe that I am he. He needed the disciples to understand that Jesus was sovereign over his own betrayal. It means he was in complete control. There's never a point that Jesus is like, Judas, are you serious? Et tu, Brute. There's not that point. He's not shocked, surprised. He's like, called it. That's Jesus. He knows who's going to win the Super Bowl. He knows. He knows who's going to betray him. He knows the heartache he's going to face, which is, listen to me, that's why this is so powerful. He is transcendent. He knows everything that is going to happen outside of space and time, but he's also imminent. How do we know he's imminent? I'm going to show you a verse here in a second. Watch this. Truly I say to you, whoever receives the one I send receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. There's two options on this. What that means is that whoever receives the one I send, that's the Holy Spirit. And so if you receive the Holy Spirit, receive Jesus and God the Father. Or if someone comes in his name saying like, hey, Jesus died on the cross for your sins, rose from the dead, believe in him. He's coming from Jesus, and when you receive him, you receive Jesus and God. But this next verse is the one that, getting back to my transcendent verse imminence, right? Watch this. Transcendent means outside of space and time, like knows everything, is kind of above and beyond it all. But watch this. This will blow your mind. And after saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit. Think about that. How does God get troubled? Usually you get troubled, why? Because you don't know what's going to happen, or someone did something that really hurt your feelings. But he knew everything that was going to happen. How is that possible? He gets troubled. He's troubled in his spirit, and he testifies truly. Why is he troubled? Because he's hurt. Like Jesus goes through real pain. Truly, truly, amen, amen, I say to you, one of you will betray me. That's why he's troubled. Transcendent, outside of space and time, imminent, like feels real pain. So like when you're going through like horrific heartbreak, hurting, he's not like, sucks to be you get over it. Time heals all things. No, he doesn't do that. He comes in the moment of your pain and angst and weeps with you. That's why John 11:35, Jesus wept. Not only is it the shortest verse in the Bible, easiest one to memorize, but it's really powerful because he's in the moment with you. And so that's why when you look at this, like, Jesus, get over it. Judas, you knew he was going to betray you. No. It hurts. I love this guy. I've washed his feet. I've served him. And he rejected me. And even though I knew that would happen since the beginning of time, here I am in the moment and it hurts. And that's why we trust Jesus. Because he's in every moment with us. He is God with us, not God outside of us. He is God with us in the pain, in the hurt, in the heartache. When you're going through something, you're like, nobody gets me. No, Jesus gets you. He's in there right with you. The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. And one of the disciples whom Jesus loved, you got to love that John writes him in that way, himself in that way. It's like, well, I know Lazarus was one that Jesus loved, but me too. I'm the disciple that Jesus loved. One of his disciples whom Jesus loved was reclining at table at Jesus' side, so Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, remember the one that Jesus loved, leaning back against Jesus, he has to make sure he knew he was sitting next to Jesus, said to him, Lord, who is it? And Jesus answered, it's he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it. So, when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then, after he had taken the morsel, this is kind of a freaky moment. Satan entered into him. Bad day for Judas. And Jesus said to him, what you're going to do it quickly. Now, no one at the table knew why he said that to him. Some thought, because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, buy what we need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out. And this is redundant because we already knew it's nighttime. And it was night. You see, there's this contrast between Jesus and Judas. Jesus is the light of the world. Judas is the son of the night, the darkness. And he goes back to where he belongs, into the night, and he's about to go betray Jesus. But the part of this I want you to see is this. None of the disciples knew who would betray Jesus. Now think about that. They had no clue. I mean, they've been hanging with this guy for 3 years. Now, they missed a lot of other stuff, but you'd think they might be a sort of perceptive. Of course, they were in their 20s, and so, life's a little selfish then. Anyway, so they're kind of so into themselves, or they are so into Jesus, and I just kind of want to get my power structure up, but nobody had a clue from the way Jesus treated Judas. Nobody had an idea. So here's Jesus hanging out with the boys. What's up, everybody? The class picture. Jesus isn't like, hey, I don't want to stand next to Judas. Judas is right there, and he's like, yeah, my homie. Like the way he's tweeting, on Facebook, Instagram. It's Jesus with Judas. There's no I won't be able to picture him. He didn't defriend Judas. He is constantly around Judas. Judas thinks he's under the radar. All the other disciples are just like, really, Judas? Man, I thought he had the money bag. I mean, the guy was he's all the finances. Jesus trusts him with all his money. That's kind of a big deal. Yet none of these disciples could distinguish from the way that Jesus treated them that Judas would betray Jesus. That means that he loved them. He loved Judas. He served Judas. He washed Judas's feet, knowing the whole time. And it's not like it doesn't bother him. Remember, this troubles his spirit. It overwhelms him. He might be even tearing up. He's like, allergies, Jesus? Yeah, don't worry about it. Here he is weeping over Judas, the guy that he foreknew would betray him. That's how much Jesus loves. And that's how much he served. And that's how much he modeled. And I want you to get this morning. I want you to wash feet. Now, I'm not going to bring a little basin up here and start going through row after row. I wanted you to take kind of the model that Jesus gives us, and I'm going to extend it a little bit. I want us to serve. I want us to serve. Let me keep this. I want us to serve. I want us to serve first our family. And I thought about this as people sometimes have no idea what I mean by that. And I'm going to give you just kind of how my day looks. So this is, I leave the house at 7 in the morning and then do church things all day. I know you think I just show up on Sunday and kick a little sermon around and then take the rest of the week off. And then at 5, I head home. All right, and then when I get in the door, I have a screaming Austin going, Dada, Dada, Dada. And he is not wanting to sit down and watch SportsCenter, shockingly. He's got like 7 vocabulary words. One of them is walk, walk, walk. So he wants me to take him, walk, and we walk outside. And if there's anything that looks remotely like a ball, he'll go, ball, ball, ball. And so we pick up a ball, and I'll throw it to him, and it'll go over his head, and he'll go, ha. And then he goes and picks it up, and he'll bring it back to me, and I'll throw it over his head, and he'll go, ha. And then we do that for like an hour or two, all right? And then dinner happens, and then it's like, Austin, eat, just put the food in your mouth. And he's like, meow, meow, meow. Elmo. And then he wants to watch like Sesame Street while we eat dinner or something. And so it's like, no, we are going to eat the food. The food is going in your mouth. And he said, no, no. And then it's bath time. And hey, Austin, it's bath time. You ready for the bath? No, no. And then we go kicking and screaming up the stairs. And I take off his clothes, take off the diaper, put him in the water, wash his back, wash his hair. I've got this technique where I won't get the water or the soap in his eyes. Pretty awesome. And then we go into dry him off. He's got like a little dinosaur towel, so we look in the mirror first so he can smile and laugh at himself in the dinosaur towel. And then we go, and I put him on the changing table, and I put another diaper on, and then we find pajamas, and sometimes they match, but most of the time they don't. Adrian gets really frustrated by that, but who can see him? And then we read books. And we have like a little nativity Jesus story, but he loves Dora the Explorer right now. He'll point at all of the objects, and he wants me to say their names. That's the snake. That's Puppy. That's the apple. That's the alligator. That's the bear. That's the other bear. That's the frog. That's the other frog. Bear, frog, snake. Okay, we've been through this, Austin. And then I pick him up. I turn out the lights. And I sing to him. And I put him in his crib. And I rub his back. Pray over him, and I leave the room. And shockingly, Adrian doesn't want to sit down and watch SportsCenter either. And so she's got little baby Jet there, and we're going to sit there, and I say, so how was your day? And here it comes. And I listen, and I make lots of fun noises like, that must have been really hard. Yeah, I can imagine. Tell me about that again. And then, after that, it's like 9 o'clock and I'm exhausted. And so now, Adrian's in bed and I pull out God's word and I want to soak in it just a little bit. And I want to soak in it just because there are things that happen during the day that they're stuck to me. And so that's why God's word will come alive. Just like things like 1 Corinthians 6:7. To have lawsuits with believers, with one another, that's already defeat for you. Why not rather be wronged? I have to go, why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be wrong? It's called meditating. You say it a lot to yourself. Sometimes it sounds like mumbling, but it's not. It's meditating. Why not rather be wronged? Or just kind of the way that I view Adrian, and sometimes you get frustrated. Pastors do get frustrated. I don't know if you knew that. But I have to kind of go back to God's word and kind of repeat, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility count others better than yourselves, as if you were married to the president, as if Michael Jordan was your spouse, because that guy gets royal treatment just about every time, everywhere he goes. Think about the way you talk to them. And I got to meditate on those things just like you do. Because that, out of like the overflow of my heart, the mouth speaks and the hands act. And so this morning, listen to me. I want you to serve your family. like that. I'm going to do my best to model it. In fact, here it is. My followers, like direct followers, are Grayson and Phil and Ben, and like those are the people that I love and I pour into and ask about their life. What can I do? How can I support you? Those are the questions I ask. And those are the things that we do. And they're finding joy and reaching their dreams. That's what we do as leaders for our followers. And ultimately for our friends. Like, if you need marriage counseling, I'm going to find a way. We're going to sit down and we're going to have some crying times and hard times and tough discussions, and man, it's going to be hard, but we'll do it. That's what we do. But then here's this last one, and I think this is the one that is really challenging. Because remember, like I said, like the person that just gets under your skin the most, the person that just you feel like has let you down the deepest, they might be sitting right next to you. That person that you felt like, no, you don't understand. You were supposed to be there for me and you betrayed me. Jesus gets that. In fact, it wasn't like a no, it's no big deal. No, Jesus was like troubled, deeply distressed in his spirit. And he's going, and he served anyway. Hear me? And if it distressed Jesus, of course it's going to distress you. Of course it's not going to be fun. Of course you're going to be like, Jesus, help me do this. I can't do this without. Of course you're going to be like that. It's hard. This is not easy life. This is not life 101. This is complex, integrated, fully outside of high school life. And we're living it. And it's hard. And so your deepest enemies are surrounding you all the time. And it's challenging. I get that. And you're going to cry. And it's going to hurt. And you're going to be betrayed. And all those things are constantly coming and hurting you. And Jesus said, this is what Christians do. You serve them. Not out of guilt. Not out of pride. Not out of suck up. Not because you're forced. But because Jesus loved you. And he died on that cross when you didn't deserve it. And he took your sin and your shame and your pain. That's why we serve. So I'm going to try and be gentle with this as much as I can. Listen, if you do all these, if you wash the feet of family, followers, and friends and enemies without Jesus, it's worthless. Can I just tell you that right now? It's going to mean nothing. Because it is impossible for you to serve like Jesus without a relationship with Jesus. And so my heart's like cry, and I'm like desperately trying for you to get this, which is why I pray over Austin. Like, God, please open up his heart, because I want him to know, and I want you to know what a relationship with Jesus is. It's that when you believe that his son, the God's son, Jesus, died on the cross for your sins, he who knew no sin became sin on our behalf, so that you could be the righteousness of God. When you believe that, you start into this relationship, and it's herky-jerky at first. You mess up on the release of the clutch, you push in the gas, and it's painful. It's not easy. But over time, you start to learn how to do it, and it becomes this thing that you just know how to do, which is why they had to create texting laws, because we can do a million things in our cars, except drive. So this morning, I'm praying that there's somebody here who doesn't know Jesus, and you're like, yeah, I think all that stuff's awesome. I'd like to do that stuff, but before you do all that stuff, I want you to have a relationship with Jesus so he can knock the crud off your soul, because you got some crud on your soul. And for those of you who do know Jesus, I want you to have Jesus wash your feet, so to knock the stuff, the world that got stuck to you. And then I want you to serve like Jesus, what he's modeled for you, because that is what Christians do. And it's going to be hard, and it ain't going to be easy, and you're going to cry, and you're going to be deeply distressed, but you're in good company, because so did Jesus. Would you guys pray with me? Father, I know that here tonight, or this morning, that people are feeling just the weight of a lot of sin and darkness in their life. And God, I'm praying that they would turn to you. And Lord, if they've never received you, that for the very first time they would come to believe that you sent your son, Jesus, to die on the cross for their sins, and he rose from the dead. And God, that would just percolate to the very soul of that person. They would say, oh, I've got it, I'm free. And then from that moment, they would start to serve family, followers, friends, and enemies the same way that they were served by you. And the way you demonstrated your love for people that were still sinners, you died for them. God, please. And Lord, for those of us that have claimed to be Christians, who call ourselves Jesus followers, when we first go and serve our family, and when it's a choice between Facebook and family, we choose family. And when it's a choice between video games and family, we choose family. When it's a choice between detaching from the real world and engaging in some painful conversation, we choose to engage our family. And that we would take that sort of love that Jesus had and we would share it with those who are followers in our community groups at work. And then we take that same sort of love and we take it to church and we find people to serve right here in this community that are our friends. And Father, we would do that really, 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 really hard thing. It might be just 1 out of every 12 people. But Lord, the people that just get under our skin, the people that seem to be our enemy, the one that has betrayed us, God, would we serve them so well so that people couldn't even tell that we had anger in our heart, even though we were crying on the inside as we serve. Oh God, please transform us from darkness to light so that the whole world could see our love for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Imagine what would happen. Now think about this. Think big picture. What would happen to your family when you started to love and serve like you were serving Jesus? When you elevated the people in your family above the needs of your own. Oh, man. Talk about the stories your children would talk about growing up. When they became 25, 30, and they're like, let me tell you about my dad. Let me tell you about my mom. And when I was hurting, and when I was sick, or when I was having these hard times, they were right in the midst of, oh man, those are the stories. That makes you just dream of those stories. That's the stories that will be told when you live out this love of Jesus. Imagine what the people that work for you are going to say. I mean, I had this boss one time. He was a crazy Christian, but man, he cared about me. Think about that. I mean, the people are going to tell stories about you, the way that you treated them, the way that you loved them. Think about your friends, man. When I was going through a hard time, I needed something. These people came, and they showed me what real friendship was, and I was lonely, and these people loved me because they were really my friends. And maybe you don't have real friends like that, but they're Christians. And then the greatest story is these enemies that we have, man. Think about that story. Just one day in the mail, I got a check from somebody I thought hated me. One day, this person said, I just want to bless you with your life. I just want to serve you in this type of whatever. And they're completely and utterly confused. It's great. And that kind of way of life will make your neighbors go like, what is it about you? Tell me about your Jesus. And you'd be like, man, it's the greatest. I could talk all day. And that's the hope, and that's the heart. Would you receive the benediction this morning? Go and be a people who love and serve their families. Who have crazy stories about crazy fathers and mothers who love them ridiculously, and in the midst of it, it didn't make sense, but all of a sudden they turn 25, turn 30 years old, and they're telling stories about their dad and about their mom. Go and be a people who love their followers, the people that work for you, the people in your community groups, the people that you get to influence for Christ. Go and love them. And let them tell stories about you. Go and serve your friends in good times and in bad. Love them. And even the hardest thing, through tears, would you serve your enemies? With broken heart, would you serve the ones that betrayed you? Go and push back the darkness and have an awesome week of worship. You're dismissed.